Thank you, PHFA, and especially to Director Robin Weissman, also to Terry Redmond and my good friend Mark Swartz, longtime board member, for this recognition. I hope it's deserved after many years of trying to create affordable housing and home ownership, but I really appreciate the recognition. Now, I just want to share that I've had a long experience with PHFA and on the home ownership side, and have seen the good work of the agency over many years. Back in 1986, I was an attorney at Community Legal Services, there trying to help people to save their homes from mortgage foreclosure. The key program that we used, in addition to bankruptcy, was the HEMAP program. And the HEMAP program allowed my clients, some of whom had lost their jobs, therefore they lost money, or there had been a spousal separation, therefore they lost household income, or at that time substance abuse, particularly crack cocaine, was really high. But several individuals had opportunities to fix their lives, to get back on the road to recovery. That's what the HEMAP program did. Stopped the foreclosure, provided an opportunity for folks to get back on their feet. Soon thereafter, I went to Regional Housing Legal Services, where instead of helping people to save their homes for foreclosure, we worked to create new affordable housing opportunities. One of my first experiences with PHFA on the creation of housing side was at Via Esperanza. That's where PHFA provided low interest loans. They also provided housing counseling assistance. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. And down payment assistance, all for individuals to help get into their first home ownership opportunity. And later at Esperanza, I ran a housing counseling program with 4 to 5 housing counselors. They got significant training assistance from PHFA, as well as financial assistance. Let me describe in detail what these housing counselors have done and do today. First, in the Hispanic community, these counselors were actually translating the foreclosure, these housing counselors are actually translating the mortgage buying system to individuals. They were translators. They would explain that you need to save up so you can get a down payment, and that the down payment can help you buy a house. They would explain that lenders are your friend in America, even though they may not have been your friend in the country from which you came, and they can be trusted. They would explain a 15-year term and a 30-year term and an ARM, a fixed rate, all important for the home buying experience. I cannot tell you the memories I have of individuals who bought their first home. They were so happy, smiling. It was a tremendous change in their lives. And this personal change in families is not just for the ones I met at Esperanza and in North Philadelphia and West Philadelphia. This is a national phenomenon. Freddie Mac, one of the major supporters of lending, did a report, and they called the value of home ownership the triple bottom line. The triple bottom line are 3 main things that come out of home ownership. First, they mentioned emotional and financial stability. Some of the individuals who we were in touch with trying to get a home for the first time had been renting and then had to move, and renting and had to move, renting and had to move. Home ownership creates that long-term stability and the emotional relief that they don't have to fear that a landlord or someone else will take their home from them. The second value that Freddie Mac found was in volunteerism. Individuals who have a home get well rooted into the communities. They volunteer at soccer and basketball and Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts. They put into the community. They also found that home ownership has a value for health. And that may simply be because in your own environment, you can make sure that there's no lead paint in your home. There's things that you can do in your home that you may be restricted from doing in an apartment. The third feature they mentioned as part of the triple bottom line was wealth creation. Home ownership generates an opportunity for families to build equity. Equity is just the difference between the principal of the property and the value over time. These properties I mentioned from Via Esperanza 1, at first they were purchased and valued at about $35,000. 25 years later, they are now valued over $300,000. That's a lot of equity. That's also a lot of gentrification. But at the same time, it's that value that is now in the hands of the homeowners. Home ownership works and housing counseling works to help people translate the very complicated mortgage system so they can create this opportunity for their families. Now, I do want to share that we have some significant challenges, even though I've described what, in my opinion, is a tremendous success of the HEMAP program and housing counseling programs that are offered and supported by PHFA. We know today we face the COVID pandemic, and that pandemic has had a tremendous challenge on the incomes of individuals. That means folks don't have the money to pay for rent, or folks don't have the money to pay the mortgage payments. These are significant challenges. And unfortunately, in the last 5 to 10 years, many of the jobs that have been created have been for low-income individuals. You may not know that the wealth in this nation is being vacuumed up to the top. And the middle class is shrinking, as well as low-income people are seriously struggling with a minimum wage that is the lowest value in the history of having a minimum wage. So these economic inequality challenges are with us, and they will be with us until we can figure out a way to have a just recovery. A just recovery means that those at the low wage need to get a higher minimum wage. A just recovery means that these tax breaks for the rich have to be addressed so we have fair share appropriation of our wealth, so that we have a fair share commitment to our country. Now, this is something I'm confident we can do as a nation, but we must do it. And we must do it for one simple reason. Our nation depends on people who are shopping. The more consumers we have to spend money, the more money circulates in the economy. So I'm confident we can address this income inequality because we all know we must do it to save our nation. A second challenge that we face is the persistence of systemic racism. Now, unfortunately, I've got to share a story of my personal experience with racism. This was at a time when I was an attorney at Regional Housing Legal Services out in Montgomery County. And there one day I went to a real estate office to look and have a conversation about buying a home in Cheltenham Township. Mark Levin, a good friend of mine, had recommended I look into Cheltenham Township because I lived in Philadelphia with my wife and 3 young children at the time. We were paying a lot of money for private school, and he said, look at Cheltenham. So I went to a real estate office, and the first thing that they said to me in the office, this is what the receptionist said, was, the receptionist said to me, the unemployment office is upstairs. Now, I want you to know that I've been working since I was 9. First as a newspaper boy, I worked, and at that time I was a lawyer. So I said, no, I'm not unemployed, not looking for an unemployment office. So the second thing that the receptionist said to me was, we didn't order lunch out today. Now, I did have a single bag from Arby's, which was right down the street. Clearly not enough for a group. And I said, no, I'm not bringing food either. I'm here to talk about buying a home. So she did eventually send me to a conference room where I talked to an agent. Very nice guy. He showed me a number of properties in a book that he had. That's when we weren't using the internet, we were just using paper. And he said, Mr. Haywood, there's so many houses that fit what you want. We can't show you any today. So I said, okay. So I went back. Now, this was after he gave me a lecture about being a first-time homeowner. Now, I did share with him I lived in a home already and was moving from one home to another in terms of my objective. Nevertheless, went back to the office, shared my experience with some of my colleagues, and they said, you may have been discriminated against. I got to tell you, my first reaction was, no way, no way. So they said, let's send some testers over there. Testers are those people who pretend to be interested in buying the house, but they're white in my instance. They're the opposite of who you are in terms of what you're testing for. So they sent a white tester, and the first white tester was showing homes the same day. Then they sent another white tester. They were showing homes, but not the same day. And then they sent a black tester out, showing no homes. Then another black tester was sent out, and they were showing homes, but it was in an all-black area. So it was very disappointing to learn that I had been the victim of housing discrimination. We did end up suing, and we did settle with them, and hopefully they have stopped that practice. But systemic racism persists. And it's not just my individual experience. Redlining stories are still in the newspaper. The Federal Reserve in Philadelphia indicated that the redlining, which is basically not providing loans to African Americans in certain parts of the city, still persists to some level. We know that there's still concerns about predatory lending and the difficulty of getting low interest loans when you have a decent credit rating, and there's been some level of discrimination against African Americans. So systemic racism and income inequality are two big challenges that face the housing market. Because I can tell you, if we don't get the growing non-white population into the housing market, then we're going to have a serious problem. So we still have these significant challenges on income inequality as well as on dealing with race discrimination. We know we have to address both for our future. We've got a rising non-white population in the nation. In order to have a nation that's still productive, we must create housing opportunities for those individuals as well. You may or may not know that in 2019, in 2019, the Census Bureau suggested that the majority of individuals who are 19 and younger would be non-white. That was in 2019. That's already happened. In 2040 or 2042, the demographers project that a majority of the nation will be non-white. So we got to prepare for that, and we can, just by making sure we open opportunity for all, just by making sure that we reduce discrimination. We've been on a long historic path in that direction. And what I'm so happy to say is PHFA has been a part of these efforts to expand opportunity for low and moderate income people, to reduce discrimination. PHFA has been in the lead in fixing this broken system in every step of the way. And most recently, with getting CARES dollars into the families who will be facing rental eviction, mortgage foreclosure, this is all part of the leadership that PHFA has provided, and I'm so glad that I have been able to participate in. And so I want to say again, thank you to all those at PHFA, all those who support the agency, all the staff. I gotta say good luck to my good friend Holly, who's been on the rental assistance side for so many years. And again, thank you for this recognition. Have a great evening.